Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. There's an old saying that goes, by failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. Wise words in a time of pandemics, physical distancing, and quarantine. Last fall, UVM Extension's agricultural engineering team talked with commercial vegetable and berry growers in New England about food safety. These conversations have taken on an unexpected foresight and given farmers a foundation of preparedness in the wake of COVID-19. Across the Fence's Keith Silva talks with the leader of UVM Extension's agricultural engineering program, Chris Callahan, about how those conversations have helped farmers prepare for a pandemic.
I'd say first and foremost, just the need to rethink business as usual, which is something we've all had to do, right? Really having each farm thinking through that individually and based on their everything from what they're growing to what their crew might look like this year, what markets they might be serving, how they might adjust, how they deliver to those markets. That was one part of it. The other part of it was, just the good old-fashioned human part of it. Just talking with each other about families. How is everybody's family doing, and the stuff of life. Business, yes, and farming and produce, sure, but also just how we doing.
Talk about those conversations you held with growers back in the fall. What did those look and sound like?
We're a small team. And a small team that's in demand by a lot of people, and so not just within Vermont, but given some of the work we do and the things we focus on, we've had requests for support and help from all over. And so one of the ways we found we can do that is by starting with a web meeting. And the nice thing about a web meeting versus a site visit, a physical site visit, is of course the time and travel is a lot lower for a web meeting. The other nice thing that we've learned is, screen sharing can be a really powerful way to be thinking about these things, especially when we're talking about planning infrastructure, buildings. And a lot of what we talk about is the physical flow of people, product, water, and waste through fruit and vegetable operations. It seems simple, but starting with a Google map and just starting to all get grounded in what do we see here? Walk us through where stuff is grown. Where's your compost pile? Where do you wash and pack produce? Where's your well? If there's livestock, where's the livestock? The web meeting platform can actually facilitate that pretty well. And then we end up doing some sketches in real time with folks, and we just use PowerPoint, nothing fancy, but just start sketching things out, and right on top of the Google Map image.
What's gained for you and your team by holding these conversations online instead of in person?
I think it provides a real opportunity to hit pause, and it takes you out of where things happen and into more of a planning mode. So having that distance can actually give you a different perspective. It can force some reflection, and really get everybody into planning mode instead of doing mode. When you're on site, it's very much there. It's still it's an active farm. It's a business. And so there's a lot of doing going on. And so in some ways, this has been a nice way to sort of just force that pause and take a step back. We have a series of questions that we use as prompts for thinking about specific challenges or dreams of what people would like to accomplish. And it's sometimes hard to extract yourself from the daily activity to think about that. And very often we're in the middle of a conversation about planning a project, and literally in mid-sentence, the grower gets pulled away to, answer an order, a call for an order, or some other crisis. And so this is, having some dedicated time and having the resources in front of us all virtually to plan it can be very helpful. we love being present with people as much as possible, obviously, and
Right.
nothing beats a site visit to understand the real nuance. But for those initial meetings, this is where we've started. We get the 80% answer right away virtually, and then we can sand the corners of the project later on.
What's the impact on labor? I'm thinking of planting and harvesting, especially in a time of quarantine and physical distancing.
If this whole thing has helped really illustrate one thing for me, it's that a farm is not a farm is not a farm, and so that also means the labor setup is also diverse and variable. One way it'll be different this year is who those people are. There's also the aspect of how the crews do their work. They need to follow the same basic guidelines that everybody has to follow in terms of physical distancing and hygiene and masks. If you're sick, stay at home. So some of this is not new. I mean, this is part of produce safety on farms in general. If you're sick, stay at home, and good hygiene and things like that. But some is new. I mean, trying to figure out a harvest with physical distancing, et cetera. Other farms might be depending more on family workers to round the crew out to avoid the risk of bringing new people on in the middle of this pandemic. So and as they learn more about what their operation is feeling like, it's staying in contact to make sure we're all making the best decisions we can.
For more information about how UVM Extension is helping farmers and Vermonters in response to COVID-19, visit uvm.edu/extension. Buy local is much more than a slogan when it comes to your garden. At many local greenhouses and nurseries, you'll often find plants that are homegrown, which means they're hardy and ready for Vermont's ever-changing weather. We found a story in our archives about a grower in Essex who's built a business on going and staying local.
From peonies and primroses to hostas, heaths, and heathers. Over 800 perennial varieties in all, and all of them grown right here at Full Circle Gardens in Essex.
The most important thing is to sell people a product that is high quality. I don't want to sell people something that isn't going to work for them. Even though there's 10,000 plants or more, I touch every single plant that comes through. I check plugs for diseases, and I check cuttings and seeds. I monitor everything that comes through here.
Salatino can keep a close watch on the plants she sells because she cultivates them on site for more than a year, which also means that she can root out any problems and pests before they become a nuisance.
One of the things about being a Vermont grower is that I'm able to detect when invasive species come in on certain plants, if they do. Also, I've been keeping my eye on a lot of species that I grow to make sure that they don't have invasive tendencies. I mean, certainly what might be a fine plant for another climate area may come in here and go wild. Case in point, like purple loosestrife. What a gorgeous plant. Who wouldn't want to have a purple loosestrife in their garden? But truthfully, who would want to have a purple loosestrife in their garden when you have so many other great substitutes and you have a plant that knows its boundaries?
Salatino opened Full Circle Gardens in 2009. She knew she was never going to be able to best the boxy mass market retailers on price, so she decided that her niche would be to sell hardy, locally grown plants and flowers that are Vermont grown and bred to last.
There's no way that I can afford to grow a quality plant that meets my standards for the prices that mass markets do. So understandably, I can see why people choose that over one of my plants. But one thing I can stand behind with plants grown in Vermont, not just my own personal Vermont grown plants, but other nurseries who do grow their own plants, is that we know that these are going to make it in this climate. I know that when this goes out the door, that a person is getting a plant, whether they're an expert gardener or a novice gardener, they're getting a plant that's going to survive in our climate and that will be enjoyable for them for years to come.
Small plant nurseries like Full Circle Gardens have the advantage over large-scale retailers by being able to offer unique and exclusive perennial varieties instead of only the old standbys or the run-of-the-mill.
I've chosen to focus on selling plant material. And with that comes this wonderful opportunity to really branch out in a lot of different varieties of plants. There's so many new patented varieties coming up on the market that I can get a hold of and sell. A lot of brand new echinaceas, very unusual colors. That's what's exciting about this nursery, whereas with a mass market, they aim for a small variety of plant material because they are not as proficient in taking care of it, and they also have to aim for what consumers will buy, which I do too to a certain extent. I just want to show them all different kinds of different varieties of perennials that they can choose from, things that they never thought of trying before that can work here in Vermont.
Sarah, these look like dead sticks. What are those?
These are hibiscus. The thing about hibiscus is they stay...
The diversity of plants at Full Circle Gardens is due in large part to Salatino's work with University of Vermont Extension Plant and Soil Science professor Leonard Perry. Salatino has participated in many of Perry's plant trials that help growers learn what varieties grow best in the Green Mountains.
One of the benefits of being part of the UVM trial studies is that I am able to tap into all this knowledge and work and study that has happened through UVM Extension. I feel very tied into the university. Anytime I have a problem or question, I'm able to contact Dr. Perry and find loads of research and information on how to change my practices so I can grow better plants.
At this nursery, it's a mixture of research, care, and quality that brings everything full circle. In Essex, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
We're happy to report Full Circle Gardens is still going strong. This year, they're taking orders online and providing curbside pickup. Check their website for details on how you can also cruise and choose under physical distancing guidelines. That's our program for today. Thanks for joining us Across the Fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.